Hello and welcome. Last week I challenged myself to see if I could make a full 3D game programming tutorial and make it fit into a YouTube short. No, I couldn't. So this week I'm just going to do the slightly longer version without restricting myself of making a quick, simple game. So let's get started. First thing I did was I went into Unity Hub. I'm in Unity 6. I've created a universal 3D project, give it a sensible name and press create. While it's creating, I'm jumping over into Mixamo. I went through the characters, found one that I quite liked. Onto animations, I found a running animation which I've used, and then I'm just going to say click in place. Now if it doesn't quite look like that, what I'm going to do is just click on the slower animation, come over to this side, model, that's fine, rig, I'm just going to say legacy, animation, I'm going to set wrap mode to loop to make sure it stays in the constant running, materials, I'm also going to say legacy, I'm going to just choose legacy as well, base textures, I think that's the one I need, yep, that should be fine, apply, and that should, if yours wasn't coloured in, should be now. And if I just press play, we should hopefully see him running on the spot. There we go, he's now running on the spot, ready for our bit of game. Now this game came about because a student asked me to do something like Subway Surfers, so this is a much simplified version, but it should be enough to get you kind of going in that direction. So I'm going to give him a little bit of ground, so I'm just going to add a 3D object, a cube, that's going to be our ground. I'm just going to make this a whole lot smaller, so I'm going to make it 5 wide, I'm going to make it 20 long. Oh, not that, that's not what I wanted, I wanted it point too high, and 20 long, I think 20 long should do. Move that down a little bit, might be too long actually. I'm just going to come to the side view. Okay, that should do for a bit of a terrain. I'm just going to move this camera up a little bit as well, just so it cuts off the first bit of the ground, make it a little bit higher, tilt it down a little bit. Again, this is more of an artist sort of your sort of choice. Okay. Important step, I'm now going to save this scene because it's not as yet, just in case it crashes. I've created a folder called tutorial, and this is going to be our main game. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is make this character move left and right, so he's avoiding things. Now, because I already did the tutorial, I've already written this code, but I'll go through it anyway. I'm just going to click on our slow run. I'm going to drag my player code, which I've already created, create, scripting, mono behavior script, and I've then called it player. We'll drag that on. So let's go and take a look at the script. So I'm over in the code. I'm just going to hide these for the moment because I don't actually want these bits at the moment. I'll come back to that shortly. So I've created a global variable called target position. This is because when I move left and right, I want it to move to a target position rather than just jumping there directly. So in my start, I'm saying my target position is equal to my current position. So the transform is the position our model is currently at. So it just starts that as this is where we are. In my update, I'm saying if I've pressed the left arrow, well, it's get key up. So this is if I've released the left key, because it's just going to be simple like tap. So we could probably modify this for mobile devices quite easily. So if I press the left arrow, if I release the left arrow key, that's just debugging to make sure this function has worked. I could get rid of that now. I'm going to say that our current position, so I have to record the current position into a temporary variable called pos, because I'm lazy, that's our position. I'm going to add 1 unit to our X position, which basically means, I'm going to take away 1, which means I'm going to move left by 1 unit, which in Unity space is basically going to be one of these squares just here, so it's going to move to the left by 1. Target position equals pos, so I've taken away 1 from our current position in its X axis, which of course is this target pos up here. Of course, if I press the right arrow, I'm going to add 1 to our temporary position, and then this last bit of code, transform.position, this is what our current position is, vector3.lerp. Lerp is linear interpolation. It means it's going to smoothly move from wherever it currently is to our target position. So if it's -1, it's going to go between 0 and -1 smoothly. So it takes the current position, target position, and then uses a time value. So if you wanted to make it move faster or slower, you could just change this value. Really, I should make this a variable up here that we could then edit inside Unity itself to make it quicker, but I'm happy with this for the moment. We'll maybe improve that later. and we'll ignore this function for the moment. But that's what's just going to make us move left and right. So if I just save this file, I'm going to come back into Unity, I'm going to press play. So now we can see we can move left, we can move right, and if you're not happy with that speed, you want to go faster, just go and change that value 5. Now we can of course go right off the edge. That's something we might want to look into later on, but I'm just trying to keep this code really simple. So the next thing we want to do is make something to avoid. I want blocks coming at me that you've got to move left and right to avoid. So I am going to create an empty, which is going to be our cube spawner. I'm going to move this to the top of the track. That should do. I'm then going to create another cube. I should really rename that to our ground, just so we don't get confused with it in a moment. Okay, so I've got our cube spawner. I'm also just going to create a cube. So if I say 3D object cube, I'm going to shrink this down a little bit to just 0.8. This just gives us a little bit of margin for error on it. I'm going to move that. In fact, it doesn't map to where it is at the moment, so I'm going to delete it anyway. So it's going to be 0, 0 position. I'm going to move this up just a little bit so it just looks like it's on the track. I've already created a material, which I just went create material. I then edited it to be sort of blue and shiny by taking the smoothness out. Can drag the blue onto the cube. There we go, blue cube. Okay, I'm going to give it a tag of cube. So I just need to add a tag, cube, then click back on cube, and actually now give it the tag. So now it knows it's a cube, it's got a box collider. I'm going to make it a trigger so that if I bump into this box, it'll do the trigger event that will then know we've collided without it actually being solid. So if I just now drag cube onto the bottom, which I think I already have anyway, I've got two now, I've got a box and a cube, it doesn't really matter, same thing anyway. And now I can delete that one from there because I don't need it in the scene. So what I need to do now is add the code spawn cube. Now as you can see, I've already written it, but I'll go through it step by step. So if I just go jump into the code, spawn cube. There's a bit going off in this one now. So I've got the public game object cube. That's obviously the real 3D model. So you could add more of this. It doesn't have to be a cube. You can have different shapes. A delay 2. That's basically, I'm going to count down delay of how often is it spawning a cube, and what is the current timer sat at, and then how long do I want it to be before the next one spawns. So it's basically, that really should be a timer. This was just me testing, so at the very beginning of the game it instantiates a cube, which just means create cube. I'm going to call it cube 1. So it takes the object we've attached to it, and I can just demonstrate that now by saying there's our cube. I'm just going to drag our cube onto it. So that's the object it will create. You could put anything there, you could put Space Invaders there if you wanted to. There's the default values. So I'm creating it, and it's going to say the vector 3 is 0, it's going to be half a unit off the ground, and it's going to be 20 units away from where we started. Now because I've done that, I'm thinking this might actually glitch because I've already put the cube half high, meaning this might be a full 1 unit high. I'll check that in a minute. And that's just what rotation. I want it just no rotation for now. Okay, so in the update function, I've got my delay, and I'm taking away the time it was from the last frame. So this makes sure no matter how fast your computer is, it'll always be the same time frame. If delay is less than 0, I'm creating a variable called x. This is where do we want on screen this cube to be? Is it going to be between -1 and 2? So x is a random number between -1 and 2. And I'm going to create another cube at that position. So whatever that random number is going to place the cube right there. I'm then creating a second cube, because when I did one cube it was a bit simple, and again that second cube is also going to be the same, which means we could have the same cube, we could have two cubes in the same space, or they could be spread out. And then just to add like a fake border, I'm creating a cube right on the left hand side and a cube on the right hand side. This just came from me experimenting a little bit. And then because we've already gone less than 0, I'm resetting our timer back to the gap time, which is 2 seconds. Again, in the future version of this game, we could slowly reduce this number so it appears to get faster and faster. Now we may look into that in a little while. Okay, so that's our spawn cube. So back in Unity, if I press play now, this is not going to work as we expect, because there's still a step we haven't done yet. So there we go, we can see a cube has spawned, we can see more cubes have spawned, more cubes have spawned, and now it's just going to keep on spawning them in the same space. If we look over here, we can see all these cubes spawning, but they're not doing anything. We need to actually move the cube. So let's click back on our cube down here. So it's the cube one I'm using, so it's that one. I'm going to click on it. I want to create another new script. Obviously I've already made mine, but it's script, monoscript, and I've called it move cube. So I'm going to click on my cube. I'm going to drag, I'm just going to hide these so I've got a bit of space to work in. So I'm going to drag my move cube onto it. And velocity is 1. We don't actually want it 1. I'm going to change this to 10 because that's a little bit slow, as we'll find out in a little while. So if I go and look at that code, so here we go, I've got velocity equals 1. Like I said, I've just changed that over in Unity because 1 was way too slow. So I just put it at 10. I'm not doing anything in the start function. Inside my update, just like before, the other one, I've got transform position. I'm copying it into a local variable. So I can say the .z is take away the velocity times what is our frame rate. So velocity was this value here. So it's going to slowly move towards us, and then I'm setting our current position to our temporary value. And I'm saying if our .z value is now less than -1, so if it's gone past us, the player, we're just going to destroy it. You could hook this up to some score system if you wanted, or you could reuse this script on other objects like bonuses. Okay, so I've got that one. So now we've added it to it. Oh, don't want to be on that. I want to be on Unity. So now when I've pressed play, we should start seeing the cubes coming at us. Just one cube from the beginning. Now it's got the full 5. And we've got basically a little playable game. Okay, so obviously what we're going to do now is add some collision. So as you know, on my cube itself, I had the box collider. We've called it cube. So if I go back over into player, to the player code, I've already added this private on trigger enter. And I'm saying if other. So other is the name of the thing that our player has bumped into. If that player.tag is a cube, so if you forgot to tag it, this bit obviously won't work. I'm saying load the scene game over. Now that doesn't exist yet. So let's go and make that happen. So I'm just going to make sure this scene is saved. While I'm here, I'm also going to go on to build profiles. I'm just going to say add the open scene. So I've got the main game in our scene manager. I'm now going to create a new scene. It doesn't matter what these are, I'm just going to go with the basic built-in. I'm going to add a canvas. Let's just double click the canvas so we can see it. I'm going to come to the front view, there's our canvas. Right click, UI, text box. You'll be asked, do you want to import the Text Mesh Pro object? Yes you do. I'm just going to put speed, oops, not spelled like that. Speed run tutorial. Why did the word tutorial not appear? There we go. Don't know where the word tutorial went now. So, and I can just play about with this text a little bit. I'm going to just lock it to the top of the canvas. Okay, that'll do. Obviously, you can spend 10 minutes and make yours look nice. While I'm here, I'm actually going to click on the camera, and I'm going to get rid of the skybox and just say solid colour. And just change something else instead so it's not that default blue. Again, your choice. Okay, so what I also want is a button. So if I go UI, button, and this is where we can play the game. So if I just click on button, text box, and just put play, we've now got a start screen. Again, you should take some time to actually make yours look nice. I'm just showing how to get it functional. So I've got my button, and I want to, what do I do when I click it? Well, that doesn't exist yet. So again, I need to make another new script. So I've right clicked, create, scripting, mono behavior script. I've called it menu. If we have a quick look at it, menu is really easy. We've included the Unity engine.scene management. I'm saying scene manager.load scene, scene name, because what I've done is I've said string scene name. So it's going to receive a parameter. So I can use this one bit of code in all my different levels. So it's going to receive the scene name, and that's what it's going to load. So if I come back down here, I'm going to create another empty. I'm just going to call this menu object. I'm going to drag the menu code onto this. So now this menu object has this menu script. So now when I click back on the button, I can say list is empty. Well, I'm going to add the menu object. I noticed in the past some of my students, they get confused and they don't have the object, they just drag the script straight to it. and then it doesn't make sense, it doesn't work. So you do have to drag the menu object over. No function, menu, and this is where we've got our load scene. Obviously it's expecting a string, so I can go to our scene. What did we call it? Let's have a double check. Not that one. I called it main game, noticing my spellings. So if I just click back on that again, button click, so it wants to go to main game. So now when I go back onto our file, build profiles, I can add this scene. Oops, I forgot to save it. That's fine. So I'm just going to call it start menu. Now notice what order they're in. If I was to now compile this for a phone, it would start there and you would never see the start menu. So I'm just going to drag this below it, and that's the order you would see. Well, that's the one you would see first. Okay, so now when I press play, hopefully this should load the game. Press play. There we go, we are into our game. Obviously still nothing's happening. Okay, while we're here, we've got this working, we know this runs. I'm just going to go file, save, just to make sure. I'm now going to go save as. I'm going to call this our game over scene. So I don't know if I've already got a game over scene, so I have to be careful. Okay, so I've now got my game over scene, but obviously I'm going to make some changes. Menu object. I would now want to go back to our start menu with this one. So if I click on button, I'm just going to go change it to our start menu, so which means when we play this one, obviously it's the same level thing, it'll just go back to the beginning instead. So I'm just going to change this text to menu. Oops, let's bring that back. There we go. So now I've just done a save as, but now we've got a menu which will take us back to it. And let's just go check that, make sure it works. So build profiles, add this current scene, got the 3 scenes, press play. So we're on our menu. There we go, back on the play scene, press play, we're into a game. So the last step. So I've just jumped back into my player code, scene manager. So this is the, if we've hit the cube, we actually want to go to our scene game over, because this time I've actually used capitals on both cases. So press save, back into Unity. So I'll just avoid the first one on purpose, bump into one. Oh, we've gone straight through it. We've gone straight through it because our character does not know that he's solid. So I'm going to add a component. I'm going to add a box collider. I'm also going to add a rigid body, because we need a rigid body to connect with triggers. So I've got the box collider. I'm just going to look at how big that is. Let's just zoom over. Okay, the box collider is right there. That's a really rubbish place. So I'm just going to, I've clicked on the edit collider button. I'm just going to bring this up a little bit, maybe to his chest. Bring that up to his feet. Bring that in a little bit. In a little bit more. To the side. I mean, that'll probably be fine actually. And that's the bit that will trigger the event, hopefully. So let's try again. There we go, we have collision, game over. I said that was the last bit. We've now got a complete game loop. We've got a start menu, we've got a game, we've got collision, and we can get to an end point. But how do we know if we've actually performed very well in this game at all? So I'm going to add an extra bit. I'm going to go UI. I'm going to add a canvas. Again, just like below before. You can see the canvas. I'm going to, on the canvas, right click, UI, text box. Again, I'm going to move this to the top. I'm going to move to the left. I'm going to stretch that a little bit just in case it needs to be. I'm going to lock this to top left corner, so if the canvas moves, it stays with that top left. And I'm then just going to put timer, which we're going to replace this text anyway in just a moment. So that's where our timer code is going to go. So let's go back into the player. Coming to the top, I already did this earlier on. So I'm just going to click, I'm going to bring this line of code back. So TM Pro text, I'm calling it data text box. That's what TB stands for. Now you might get an error message because you do need to include TM Pro. You also need the scene manager for the earlier bit, by the way, if you didn't notice that point. So I've got TM Pro text data. I'm going to have our timer. So it's a floating point variable, data type, sorry, called timer. I'm starting at 0. I'm going to come down to our update code. And I'm just going to update. I'm just going to add however much time has passed between frames to our current timer, and I'm going to then assign it to the text box. So timer.toString, because right now that's a float, so I'm converting it to a string, and I'm rounding it off to 2 decimal places. This is absolutely fine for doing things like timers. Would not be a good way if you're trying to deal with like finances and currency. So I'm going to write that into the text box. and that's really going to be it. So I think that's all we need for this scene. So let's just save the changes back into Unity. Okay, so on our player, we've got the script. It also now wants the text box. I'm just going to grab the text box, drag it over, and now when we press play, we should see the timer counting up. There we go, we can see our timer going for it. Okay, I think that's enough now. Your challenge really is going to be, can you make this game more interesting, more exciting? Could you add things that you've got to collect? Can you make it slowly speed up over time? I did notice there's a little glitch on this, which I think could be an interesting fix. You know, if I play with the keys properly, it's fine. However, if I sort of do random clicking, it's moving offset, it's not staying to whole numbers. So I think that needs to be fixed. Also, your challenge could be to maybe make him jump or duck, so he goes under cubes that are maybe on a higher level. And to bring them animations in, check out the tutorial on Mixamo where I look at different animations. If you extend this game to something more fun, please do add a link and a comment below so I can see what you've created. Other than that, I will see you in the next video.